Good morning, Durham, New Hampshire. I'm Emily.
And I'm Chloe. You're tuning into Channel 5 News, bringing you a special edition on physically reprimanding your children, including the surrounding controversy and potential lifelong impacts.
Is physical punishment still okay in today's society, or should it be socially unacceptable, knowing the effects it can have on our children?
So what exactly is physical punishment, and when are the parents taking it too far? Physical discipline, also known as physical or corporal punishment, is a punishment intended to cause physical pain on a person, most often practiced on minors, especially in home settings. Effective discipline is intended to help children organize themselves, internalize rules, and acquire appropriate behavior patterns.
Corporal punishment has been a widely used and, until more recently, accepted form of discipline in the United States for some time. A 2002 meta-analysis conducted by Dr. Gershoff at Columbia University found strong correlations between physical discipline and several factors, including increased child aggression and antisocial behavior. The one desirable outcome was the relationship between corporal punishment and immediate compliance of the child. This is where the issue becomes controversial. Is the benefit of an obedient child worth the potential risks? At what point does occasional physical discipline become child abuse? Today we have someone who is willing to share his story about what happened when the physical discipline used against him as a child went too far.
Thanks for having me on the show. Today I'd like to talk a little about my personal experience with physical abuse as a child and how that's impacted me over the years. So I've personally experienced physical abuse as a child firsthand, and now later in my life it's easy for me to look back and see how that shaped me.
What was your family situation like at home as a child, and when did the abuse start?
My parents divorced when I was young, and my mom remarried when I was 8. I found myself having to spend a lot of time around a new man in the house. I hadn't given it much thought, but overall, I was uncomfortable. He often raised his voice and took it upon himself to discipline my brother and I. The punishment started off minor, with a little hit or shove here and there, but the more time I spent around him, the more he felt the need to correct my behavior physically. He often lashed out at me and would hit me whenever he seemed angered at my actions. I was also a relatively impulsive child. I got myself into trouble a few times with simple matters, but these matters were disciplined with hitting and belittling.
And did the physical discipline continue as you got older?
It got more aggressive as I got older, and no one ever stepped in to stop it. The punishment was clearly crossing a line.
Do you feel like it could have made a difference if someone intervened?
Maybe not. It seemed, for the most part, it was normal for parents to physically discipline their children in my smaller community. One thing was for sure. I was scared to ever step out of line in front of my stepdad. I started to become very anxious soon after he started frequently hitting me, and I began to resent his authority. It began to affect my performance in school, and I was too scared to reach out to my mom or anyone else about it.
And do you feel like the physical discipline you experienced as a child had a lasting impact on you?
Looking back, I feel as though the physical abuse made me a more anxious person overall. Even when my mom divorced a man who harshly disciplined me for years, I had a harder time managing my emotions, and I was extremely worried at home as well. It was harder for me to trust authority afterwards as well. I remember feeling like I had to escape my house, and as I got older, I just spent more time out with my friends.
Thank you, Tate. That was really informative.
Yeah, of course. I just hope my experience can help others be aware of the negative outcomes associated with physical punishment.
Of course. Joining us next is Dr. Erin Schell, a child psychologist who specializes in physical discipline and child abuse.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Tate, for willing to speak on such a sensitive issue. Before we discuss the effects, I want to talk about the distinction between corporal punishment and child abuse. The distinction is very difficult to make due to various situational factors that can impact the effects on physical punishment, such as the frequency and the ways punishment is administered. It can vary from parent to parent, but generally it has been found that a higher frequency and severity of physical punishment leads to heightened psychological stress of the child. Simply put, corporal punishment is a way to gain parental control through inflicting pain.
Interesting. Can you tell us more about the psychological effects?
Over time, the dilemma of unfair versus deserved punishment from a child's perspective can prompt anxiety and depression through feelings of hopelessness, low self-esteem, and shame. Children who interpret physical punishment as unfair occasionally display aggression and antisocial tendencies.
From a psychological standpoint, is physical discipline effective or beneficial in any sense?
In many cases, parents hope that children realize certain actions result in consequences, While physical punishment may temporarily result in compliance of the child, it is not beneficial in the long term as it does not actually teach the child right from wrong. Other reasons as to why it is not the most ideal parenting technique is that children feel a weaker bond between their parents. The children might become afraid of their parents, and when their parents are not around, in a classroom setting, for example, the child may act out since their parents are not there to administer the punishment. Overall, the downfalls of corporal discipline outweigh the immediate feeling of parental control.
Great, thank you for your time. Thank you again to both Tate and Dr. Schell for sharing your experiences and expertise on the topic of physical discipline. It's great to hear from both a personal and professional view just how detrimental it can be to both the physical and emotional well-being of the child.
Absolutely. Based off of these testimonies, it is difficult to see the benefits of physical discipline. Parents inclined towards physical punishment should use the research presented by Dr. Schell and their own research to inform their decisions and determine if the pros outweigh the cons for them. Research has found that mothers in parenting classes, support groups, and group socializations with their children are less likely to report using physical discipline. With this in mind, parents can take preemptive measures to either build or maintain good parent-children relationships and decrease the likelihood that they will use physical discipline with their children.
This also brings about the issue of what to do if you witness physical discipline either in public or with people you know. If you feel tempted to intervene, you should act on that urge. Remember that you could increase a child's sense of well-being or even save them from serious physical harm. What you're witnessing as one instance of physical discipline could be a piece of an ongoing pattern of physical abuse.
That's all for this installment on parenting techniques. Tune in next time for more news updates in the child development field.